Hey everybody, it's the Knitty Professor, and today's video is all about knitting aspirations. Now, a lot of us knit for enjoyment and relaxation, and there are also, probably people watching here who are professionals who really know what they're doing, instead of someone like me who is just sort of a glorified amateur. But I'm sure a lot of you can identify with the notion of having certain ambitions with your knitting. You get started and you get more excited about the possibilities, right? And as most of you know about me, colorwork is my thing. At some point I will learn how to do cables. I look forward to the opportunity to do that, particularly because my younger son really wants that. So I do plan to make that particular plunge. My biggest fear about cables is the gauge. So I think I'm just going to have to make a lot of swatches and figure out what the possibilities are. So before we get started, what I'm going to do basically is I'm going to show you 5 designs that I would love, love, love to knit, but I have a feeling it may not happen. I don't know. So before we get started, I just wanted to share that a friend of mine needed to rehome some yarn, and she gifted me with some cool stuff, which I thought some of it, might want to share with you. It's kind of stuffed here in this bag, this big box store bag. So I just wanted to show you a few highlights. Now here's a yarn that if you know Asian languages and you're familiar with this brand, I would love to get your take on this yarn. And got some runaways here. She told me that she found this at it's got a cat here. That's nothing new, right? Hi, cat. Found it at a thrift store, and it just looks like really nice wool to me. I'm a language expert, but I am not sure if that's Japanese, Korean, maybe. And boy, that really brings out my ignorance when, there are like 6,000 languages in the world, and I only know a handful of them. So, but it's a nice yarn. I'd like to know more about it. I just can't make out what's on the label. This one is really nice too. It's called Paka Paints. That's the brand. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? And just from the feel of it, I'm going to say it has a lot of alpaca. Let's just check this out. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Super fine alpaca. The color is Desert Sunset, made in Peru, dyed in the USA. There's your label right there. But it's just a lovely yarn. And I do like knitting with alpaca. Now, I'm not going to make a sweater out of it, but a hat, absolutely. This is really nice yarn that she gave me too. And I'm not sure what went on, like if she finished some projects and had some leftovers. But we'll figure out what to do with all this beautiful yarn. Shepherd's wool. What's cool about this skein, isn't that lovely, gray and black, is I have from the same brand skeins in a blue, variegated blue and variegated red. So I could definitely figure out something to do with that. Here's another one that's lovely. Louisa Harding. That's the label. It says Kimono Angora on there. And isn't that lovely? Wait, it's got some... Well, that's quite the halo on there. I thought maybe that was a poof of cat fur, but that's actually the halo on the yarn. Angora, I would love to know where it's from. It says it's suitable for dry cleaning, for whatever it's worth. Kimono Angora, 70% Angora, 25% wool, and 5% nylon. And it's made in Italy. It makes me happy to know it's made in Italy because I feel like they're a little more, I don't know, trustworthy, shall we say. And there are other brands, other yarns in here. I'm not going to bore you with all of it. Ah, there's another one running away. There we go. But there's one more that, boy oh boy, wanted to show you called Sweet Georgia. I'm definitely familiar with that brand. This is, I want to say it's a mohair. Yes, 60% mohair and 40% cultivated silk. Color is orchid. Isn't that beautiful? Look how it matches the wall. I could make a hat. She also gave me an alpaca blend in the same color from Debbie Bliss, alpaca silk. I could take these two and knit an 0815 Nuala from Sane hat, and I think it would go with the sweater. So anyhow, I just wanted to share my good fortune in having a friend who needed to rehome some yarn. So let's get into it. So I have, like I was saying, 5 knitting patterns that I would love to knit. They're just so beautiful. And I am very good at picking projects that are ambitious, you know. I look at them and I'm like, yeah, that would be fun to work on. I would love to wear it when it's done, and it takes like 20 years. So I'm not going to promise anything that I'm like going to knit these, because I think the likelihood is sort of not great. So I'm going to start with the 5th most likely pattern that I could potentially take on. And I'm going to move up. The number 1 will be the one that I'm like, probably not. But in the meantime, you're going to get to take in some really beautiful ideas. And, you know, I would be curious if you want to write in the comments. Maybe you already made this garment, or you would be curious to try it, or you would be, you know, scared out of your gourd, whatever it is. So the first pattern comes from, this is a fascinating book, Norwegian Knitting Designs, a collection from some of Norway's leading knitting designers. And this has some very elevated, esoteric patterns. I'm going to show you the one in this book that I could see myself attempting this. So here it is. This is a children's design. This is an all-over cat sweater. I think it's absolutely adorable. And I do think, so here's the problem with these patterns, these Colorwork patterns. You know, it's just, they're heck to follow. That it's just, you have to count every stitch, every row, and if you get off by 1 stitch, then the next row is off. And you have to decide if you're going to frog it, and then the gauge. I mean, there's so much risk involved, right? It's different with something like this, where you knit all the way up and you know it's going to fit, and then you do the yoke and you've got, like, you know, 5 different yokes you can follow. In any case, I love cats, and so this, it's like the design, it's 100 stitches across front and back. I mean, I figure I could probably figure out a yarn, there's a cute little close-up, that I could get to the right gauge to have a sweater that required, you know, 200 stitches all the way around, maybe like a DK or something like that. And I just think it's adorable, and I would really like to do it. Now, I'll give you a little inkling, and I'm going to try to get all of these books linked for you in the description. Look at that. Isn't that stunning? That's not something I would make. It's too hard, and I would be too unlikely to wear it. Cats, though, different matter. But I'll show you a couple more. The models in these, they're sort of serenely evocative. Here's another sweater. It's really, really pretty. I'll show you a couple more. This one, the photography on some of these is just a little bit tricky, but the blues, I love the colors on these. I like anything that's sort of a complex design. It just reminds me of those castles in Europe that I used to visit. Sorry about the reflection. With their tapestries on the wall and the tapestries on the bed linens, etc. And I'm a big needle pointer too. Now I've been sort of getting out of the habit, but I do intend, since I'm officially retired-ish, I do intend to do something about that. Here's another one that's quite lovely. Difficult to see because we've got ultramarine on black, but isn't that gorgeous? It's just exquisite. So yeah, that's my number 5, I think, of all the patterns I'm going to show you. I'm probably most likely to try this one because I do think it's approachable. So let's look at number 4. It's from this book. I'd be curious if y'all are familiar with these. The New Stranded Colorwork Techniques and Patterns for Vibrant Knitwear. Can't read backwards. By Mary Scott Huff. So this is a one-author book. And I actually can tell you a little bit of an interesting story about this one. So this is the sweater. The closures alone are fun, aren't they? I don't see those often in the knitting scene, but I have run across them, especially in those, I'm probably going to mispronounce it, but those Dala Norwegian machine-made sweaters that are really super high quality. But if you look at this, I'm going to call it a bird of paradise. If it's something else, feel free to tell me it's a peacock or whatever, but I did actually incorporate this motif into another sweater. So some of you have seen it. See if I can give you a bit more of a close-up on it so you can just get a good look at those birds. So I actually incorporated a whole row of those birds in a sweater that I knit with some yarn. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I'll remember it as soon as the video is over. It's a BFL though. Yeah, I'll remember it at some point. To give you an idea of how hard these sweaters are, I have marked them with Hungarian language bookmarks because that's the hardest language I ever learned. Besides English. I don't know, English is sometimes it's kind of hard. Big book. I've tried writing English. It's like, is that the right vocabulary word? Did I use the right punctuation? I don't know. Now here's a vest. I really, really like this design. And, you know, it would be possible to make it into a sweater. Now, I really need a vest. I haven't made one. And I think it's probably something I would wear relatively frequently. It's just such a cool design. This book is, I think it's in Danish. If I'm wrong, feel free to laugh at me. But I think this is in Danish. The patterns, however, are Finnish. So the book is Mina Finska Swetre. So these are all Finnish designs. And now there are some designs in here that I'm more likely to knit because they look a little bit more approachable. I don't want to like tear my hair out. It's already short enough. While I'm trying to knit because it should be relaxing. It should bring me joy. It shouldn't bring me frustration. And this pattern, again, it looks like it would be a bear to follow. But it would be super cool. And again, I'm sure you're interested in some of the other patterns in here. They're not all as cool as that one, but some of them measure up. Let me just see if I can pick out a few. This book is nice enough to show you in the front all of the different models that are in there. And even though the patterns are, I think it's Danish, I'm sure I could use AI to translate them. It wouldn't be a problem. At one point I did a short on the hoodie that is in here. Oh, here's one. There's an otter sweater that I could see myself making. I'll show it to you. It's page 48. I think that's just really cool looking. Look at that. It's just adorable. And then you have the yoke with a little more of a geometric Icelandic type of look. But that would be such a fun sweater. So that I find a little more approachable. The hard part is like 30 rows and then, you know, the rest is a little bit more straightforward. So anyhow, let's look at getting up to the top here. Number two. Wouldn't you know it? Kaffe Fassett. I have 3 or 4 books of his glorious knits and I have several books of his glorious needlepoint. He did a lot of glorious stuff. So yeah, Kaffe Fassett. I've seen a couple of interviews and biographies about him. Just such a seminal designer. So this sweater, which, man, I would love to knit it. I would love to knit it, and the pattern is, it's written in a way, so this dates back, I'm going to say to the 80s. Let me give you the right date here. Well, 93, so a little over 30 years ago. I tried to approach this pattern at one point and I just got lost in it. I couldn't figure out, was it intarsia or what? You know, I'm assuming it's intarsia, but here it is. It's called Heraldic Dogs. Sorry, we're getting a little reflection on there. There we go, that's better. Isn't that stunning? Now, personally, I would choose brighter colors. Not that, you know, Kaffe's color sense isn't perfect. Mine's probably imperfect, but it is mine. And I would use, you know, a little bit more like this maybe. But it would be such a cool sweater. It would be so cool. Heraldic Dogs. Yeah. If you've knit anything like this by Kaffe Fassett and you have like advice I would take it. I would take it. I even went to see if they had anything on YouTube. And yes, it is in Tarja. It is in Tarja. And the charts, another thing that's tricky about this book is these charts, it's all black and white. And so you have those little symbols that show you what colors to use. And I would probably have to put this under magnifying glass because my eyes aren't quite as sharp as they were 30 years ago. But boy, oh boy, yes, I would love to knit that. I really would. And I haven't done Intarsia yet. If you've done Intarsia and you have some good tutorials for me to check out, I would appreciate that too, because that is another skill that I have not yet developed. All right, here we're at number 1 from Meg Swansen's Knitting 30 Designs for Hand Knitting. And another fantastic Colorwork expert. This book has a lot of cool sweaters in it, and to my thinking, the coolest one is the Phoenix pullover. See if we can zero in on that. Isn't that spectacular? That's just spectacular. The gradient yarn in the background against the black is really cool. Here's a little close-up. I just love that. I just love it. But man, oh man, following the pattern to knit this baby up, wow. You know, it's easier at needlepoint if you get like a painted canvas, then you just do the color that's, you know, like right there. But here you got to follow this. You kidding me, right? I think I'd have to get out some highlighters and just like go through each row. I would have to have, if you have any suggestions for how to follow this, I would love it. It amazes me that she was even able to, you know, graph out this pattern. It's extraordinary, right? I mean, even the pattern alone is like its own work of art. And there's a version in here that is a cardigan in gray. Here's a detail of that. It's just exquisite. But the chances that I'll ever actually carry this off, I don't know, folks. I don't know. I don't know. So you say in German, ich traue es mir nicht zu. I'm not sure I would actually survive that project. I've got a couple on the needles that have been sitting on there for a good while because they're maybe, you know, 20% as hard as this. Hopefully the light will catch up. There we go. That's the cardigan. It's just stunning. I might choose colors that brought out the differentiation a little bit more. But, so I don't know. I'd love your take on ambitious knitting, you know, and be interesting to know, like, what's the hardest project that you ever approached, or maybe the hardest one you ever completed, or I look at, like, there's a, I think she's Norwegian designer, Kaffe Fassett. I remember seeing an episode of Fruity Knitting that went into her, and recently at the knitting loft, those of you who saw that video, I saw they had like boxed kits for some of her jackets, and again, they're just stunning. They're just they look so tempting, but when you start digging in, you're like, whoa, what have I gotten myself into? So if you're Kaffe Fassett and you know how to go about making these complex garments in a way that doesn't drive you absolutely nutty, let me know. I swear to God, I think Kaffe must have had some test knitters help him with all the designs in this book. And all the designs in all the books. They're just extraordinary. So anyhow, I'm going to continue to enjoy what the Germans refer to as an Augenweide. How would you say that? It's just something that gratifies your eye to no end, paging through these books. And I look forward to your comments and your reflections on this topic of ambitious knitting projects. And if you have some successes to report to us about, share those too. I'd love to be inspired. So y'all take care. We'll talk soon. Bye.